it's not a lot of times that my own friends get to make history here on my podcast, What's Left of It. But if anybody's going to make history, trust me, it is going to be arguably my favorite troublemaker. You know him as many a thing. You know him as a deathmatch king, as a rebel, as a kindred spirit, as a beast. I know him as my friend, ladies and gentlemen, Kaide Lothbrok, the first two-time appearing on the following conversation, scheduled for one fall. A lot of ground to cover. Haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks. Kaide, how are you?
I'm good, man. It's been a interesting few months since the last time we saw each other in person, which I believe was my wedding, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It's been a while, right?
I haven't seen you. We might have seen each other once or twice after.
There might have been a show in between there. My brain's shot, dude.
No, it's fine. But either way, we haven't seen each other in a while. It's been at least 6 or 7 months.
It's been a fortnight, as they say.
Yes, it's been a fortnight. I really like, you're always changing, you're always evolving, which you never get credit for. You never get credit for how good of a worker you are, but nowadays you are. Is it foreign to you to hear all the praise you get these days? I mean, to me, it's not enough, but all the praise that you get now, is that still foreign to you? Because it's more than you used to get before.
It's definitely odd, because when I was younger, I was seeking that like adulation and like, oh, I want to be recognized. Yeah. I probably wasn't as good as I thought I was. I think like anyone, you have a chip on your shoulder, and then you see people come in after you and get opportunities, or guys that you broke in with get opportunities or get signed. So there definitely was a chip on my shoulder. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm still here doing this and everyone else has either moved on to bigger and better or retired. Right. But no, it's cool, man. Like, especially recently with the amount of love I've been getting from a lot of fans, especially on Long Island. I know we'll get into it, but I've been blown away by the amount. And like I said, I think maybe it's just because I'm kind of in that weird middle ground of like, I came in and the indies were still really, really like hot. The homicides, the low key CM Punks,
the Renaissance period of the indies.
Yeah, like Ring of Honor was in their hot period. So like I came in 2004 to start training. So like obviously I wasn't a part of that, but I feel like I'm kind of in that maybe like 5-year range of guys that came in, broke in a way that was definitely not how it is now, and was a lot rougher. Obviously not rougher than the guys that came before me, but clearly I think it was that. I think that is a lot to do with how I am and just put your nose to the grindstone. But as far as being recognized or getting the praise and finally that recognition, I guess. Yeah, man. Like I said, being older and wiser and more grizzled, I think it's humbling more than it's like, yeah, I deserve it. And just everyone takes that different path. Who knows, man? If I would have gotten it when I was younger, how big my ego would have been or could have been even bigger than it was at the time.
Right.
But it's cool, man. It's humbling to like, and it's more humble. I mean, as much as it is awesome to get it from fans. When I get it from like other talent and other boys in the locker room, guys like, Tommy Dreamer and guys like, that have been on TV, Ethan Page, guys like that, before Ethan went, he wanted to work a program with me and Excite. And, so stuff like that is really cool. To like, and then to hear from guys like, why, you should be on TV. Why aren't you signed? It's, you hear it all the time and it's like, well, it's really more than just like your talent, but it's nice to hear. Like when I did extra work a few times for AEW. I won't name any names because I don't want to incriminate anyone. But a couple of guys were like, "Listen, man, this guy's here, this guy's here, this guy's here. There's no reason why you're not." So that's cool. And
right.
If
with you talk with a lot of hindsight and retrospect, and a lot of the guys that have that are premier pundits in the industry like Eric Bischoff are very thankful for the likes of hindsight and retrospect. So with that being said, you were asked a lot of why did you? With the beauty of hindsight, X amount of years later, all the momentum do you have? Do you think you had to change your name and adopt a new persona, or do you think you could have held on to the Stockade moniker a little bit longer?
So I mean, that's like a weird thing with people. There's been a rumor that I changed my name because I didn't want to be associated with it because Stockade was, there was accusations in past relationships with one girl.
Sure.
I changed my name. Honestly, straight up, my name, I never chose Stockade. It was given to me by Mikey Whipwreck. I never liked it. That just, I mean, it was what it was. Nowadays, guys come into business and these young kids are like, hey, what do you want to be? It's like, that's, that was different. So,
right.
The pandemic. So this is the truth. The pandemic happened, and like everyone else, we had a lot of time on our hands and a lot of time to do absolutely nothing. And during that time, I don't think it's a secret, I was a big fat person. I was probably
little chunky.
I was cultivating mass, as I like to say.
Okay. I would have called you like a low sodium minestrone soup, but I'll take that.
Yeah. But like I took it to, I was definitely probably 410 at my heaviest, if I had to guess it. The heaviest I ever weighed myself
was really that big?
Dude, the heaviest I ever weighed myself was 398. Who the hell knows?
Jesus.
So
it's strange because I remember, and I've never told you this, the last show we did, that we did together, rather, at Excite, back the 1 week before the pandemic happened.
Before the end of the world.
Yeah. So while we were excited, I was there having a cup of coffee. Thanks, Moose. I saw you, changing into your gear at that time, and what have you. And I could just remember, like damn, having a moment as like, I didn't know my friend. I saw so much pain on your body. First of all, I remember that. I remember physically seeing kind of like the way guys talk about, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, the way that guys would talk about like Abdullah, the way guys would talk about Mick Foley, the way guys would talk about Scott Steiner and those last years that you saw the pain on their body. And I saw that on you when you were in the locker room getting ready and the difficulties and the wear and tear. But for the first time ever, because look, let's just say what it was. You were never known as a body, right? And guys would give you shit for your size. But I never saw you. I just saw you. When you get in the indies, you learn that wrestlers are not WWE cookie cutter. Everybody's a different cookie, right? So what I'm getting at here is that was the first time I was like, damn, that's some bitch big, but I would have never guessed to that degree.
So I was lucky. And I say lucky, but it was still probably a little over 400. I carried it fairly well. I was never what's called sloppy fat, which was like,
oh yeah,
I don't even know who to compare it to, but I think we all know what sloppy fat is. Like the guy that did the dancing bikini thing.
You could draw your own image up so that we can.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah. And I always got praise for how well I moved in the ring because even at my heaviest, I've always been a good athlete to some capacity.
And deceptive at that. Deceptive.
Yeah, and that was like always my big. Everyone was like, "Oh my god, the dude's he's 400 pounds, but he moves like he's 200." So it was a compliment. But no, man, listen, like the deathmatch stuff compounded with my weight, it put a beating on my body. Honestly, the pandemic sucked. I don't think anyone will disagree with that, but for someone like me, it was a blessing because I was able to stop beating my body up because I was also dealing with mental health issues. Like I never addressed my mental health issues till I got with my my girlfriend, now my wife,
right?
And going to therapy and like, look, man, I being 37, I grew up, was born in 1987, grew up through the night. Like, there was still that like you're a boy, you don't cry. It's a lot of that.
Sure.
There's a lot of old school in me, and I still feel that way. But it's okay to work through a lot of shit, and I have a lot of family.
You got a lot of shit to work through.
Yeah. Anyway, so this all ties into the name change as we go on this tangent, but basically, man, I learned what food really was. Stop eating garbage, and it's hard when you're on the road, but
yeah,
it was able to let me to slow down. Because I was furloughed like everybody else for the most part. I had nothing to do, so I did a lot of walking. I would do stuff at home, and I would just watch what I was eating, and it slowly the weight started to come off. And then once gyms were open, it was back in the gym, and I found my love of working out. During the pandemic, I fell in love with the sport of strongman lifting. I watched, there was a TV show that used to be on History. It's called The Strongest Men on Earth, which was with Brian Shaw, Nick Best, Eddie Hall, and Rob Oberst, which are all strongmen Brian Shaw is a 4-time world's strongest man. Eddie Hall is a 1-time. Oberist and Nick have a bunch of different records. Anyway, just fell in love with the idea of like, okay, these dudes are crazy, crazy, crazy strong.
Yeah.
And they're athletes. They don't look like, your Jay Cutlers or your Ronnie Coleman, these bodybuilders. You don't have to be a bodybuilder to be something impressive. And I always would compare myself to guys like Tony Nese or, the guys that look like, holy shit, like the bodybuilders. Sure. Because you always heard it's an aesthetic business. It is. But it doesn't mean that, okay, aesthetically, yes, these guys look, appealing and they look amazing. They look like comic book characters off the page. But I can look that way too in my own way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You know what else too? And I think this is something that people only want to slam on when it's convenient. And it's proven some of the best bodies in the history of pro wrestling were also associated to some of the worst workers or some of the, and yes, and ultimately, this is something that even indie guys don't want to accept. Ultimately, pro wrestling is television, right? Mm-hmm. And to one degree or another, you have to look presentable for television. And some of the guys who look the best for that in the ring were a different story. And I think that just goes back to, again, how deceptive you were, and to a degree still are, with your look. And it's like, oh, wow, this son of a bitch can go.
Yeah, look, you look at, you can run down the list of guys. This may sound crazy, and some people may think it's crazy. Hogan didn't have a great body. Hogan didn't have a six-pack. Hogan wasn't really lean. He was big.
He was tall, and he was wide.
And he was thick like a sunbitch, but he wasn't Ultimate Warrior lean. He wasn't Rick Rude lean.
No, not at all.
You look at the Road Warrior Hawk was lean and defined. Animal was just thick. You could run down the list. So there came a time where, and it's, listen, anything that WWF did or does, there's a trend. The indies follow, everyone else follows. Yeah. Vince liked bodybuilders, everyone had to become a bodybuilder. As much as bodybuilding is a fantastic sport, and if you can be that dedicated to your eating and your nutrition, and it ain't for me. I have a friend, she was a former IFBB, which is a bodybuilding, International Federation of Bodybuilding. She literally said, like, hey, I will show you how to count your macros, this. And I literally looked at her and I was like, the only thing I want to count is the weight on the bar. I like to eat. I like my food.
Yeah.
And, look, I've done a few amateur competitions in strongman. I have no aspirations if I was younger, absolutely. But between carrying that weight and the damage I've done to my body with wrestling, I'm beat up. And look, the numbers I put up, I'm sure people, if they follow me on social media, they'll see it. I'm putting up numbers that impress me and other people at the gym, and numbers that, like, people will message me like, dude, that's insane. So, I'm getting that, I guess, acknowledgement or praise for what I'm doing. But I just honestly, I just love being in the gym. I love the community of it. And it's kind of funny.
You don't like tripods at the gym. You don't like the tripods.
No one does. No one does. Look, the gym I go to is a very, very, very serious, real deal gym. There's bodybuilders. I'm not the only wrestler, but I'm the only wrestler that's kind of pushing. Like Bull James goes there. I haven't seen him, but I know he does go there. Another wrestler named Gary Reno, who's a local guy.
I know Gary, great guy.
Yeah, Gary goes there. I see Gary all the time. I think a couple other young kids go there. I haven't run into them. Yeah. But I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. But the gym is very serious and hardcore, and they literally opened the doors to me and then have treated me like gold. So I have, no.
And
no
this is not your Planet Fitness.
It's not your Planet Fitness. It's not your. The gym's called ProFit Gym in Long Island. They have 2 locations. They're 24/7. They're one of the few gyms left around that's 24/7, especially in my area. Really the only one.
Here we don't have a lot of 24/7s.
Yeah. It's a real deal gym. They have a lot of equipment that like, put it this way, man. I brought my wife there, and she was like, I can't. It can be intimidating if you're not invested in that community and you don't know. No one's. Don't get me wrong. I've never had an issue that I've had fights and arguments and issues at other gyms like LA Fitness, Retro, Crunch, etc. It's not like that here. And man, they've listened from giving me free shirts and stuff when they don't have to allow me to bring somebody in as a guest for free. to allowing me to promote stuff. You know, like they share my Instagram stuff, which is crazy.
Right.
So it's a great thing.
Now let's get into it. I want to talk because now, and it's here's the thing, guys. I've seen this. A lot of people don't know or don't suspect that we're friends. And I have seen you evolve over the last 10 years. And I've seen you change as a performer and as a man. I've seen you with the red light on, with the red light off. And not many people were around you. They heard the stories, they heard the lore, but weren't actually there of the old stockade, right?
Yes.
There was, and maybe there still is, maybe it's not as heightened, a stigma about you, which I'm sure that exact phrase I used on a previous episode with you. What exactly, and maybe you did ultimately get the goal, you went to NYWC, you went to the Sportatorium, and you hopped the barricade? We haven't talked about that. Like, and do you feel that?
Do you want the real story? Do you want the real story, or do you want to keep this in the realm of what we do? What do you want? Because I don't know.
I want to know what really possessed you to think, oh, well, if those guys aren't going to have me back, I'm going to come on back.
Well, I'm not. I hate to break hearts and minds. So this was something that was worked on for a while, actually. So pulling the curtain back, it's all. I mean, I think everyone knows it's all a fucking story. I would hope so.
Okay.
So basically, I've been gone for 7 years, and it wasn't a good thing.
What can you? Because I'm not trying to rehash.
Well, I'm an open book. I'll say
what. In short, what can you tell
about what happened?
About why you ultimately, because you, for a long time, especially from 14 to 17, you were the guy at NYWC.
So this is what happened.
There was you, there was Mega, there was Duke, and of course when Smith came back to the Indies and stuff like that, yeah, sure, there were other guys, but a big identity of the number one bad guy was you.
So this is what happened.
What happened?
This is it. Basically, I'm stubborn. I speak my mind. I don't have a filter. I am very honest. And I take pride in what I do. And I took pride in NYWC. And I took pride in being the guy that carried the ball and pushed the cart. And I tried everything I could. Basically, there's a lot of personalities there in NYWC. And you're not always going to get along. And you're not always going to gel. And there was a lot of internal issues that did not involve me with owners of the company, that one person didn't want to be there and still do this, and felt like it would be probably better if the company was sold. And there was a couple other guys that thought the opposite. My honest take, looking back on it now, and everyone's cool. I think it was a slow thing. You know, again, look, I'm not innocent. I know I was difficult at times. I spoke my mind. At the end of the day, and I look back on it, and I should have realized it, it's not my money. So you know what? I should have been like, do what you want. But because I was so young and dumb and just like, no, like I wanted it. I always felt, and I still do, that place could have been a marquee indie where people wanted to be there and work there, and fans came from the entire Northeast, you know, to see these shows. It just never, you know, for whatever reason. But so basically, long story short, me and one owner, just oil and water, and he was like, you got to go. And I was like, you want me gone? He's like, yeah. I said, then fuck it, I quit. And that was the end of it. And people were not thrilled about it. One of them being Crusher. And, you know, there was a plan put together to, well, don't have him say anything and let him calm down. And in a couple months we'll go and we'll sit and we'll talk with X, Y, and Z, and we'll get him back. And then that time passed, and Crusher was told it's not happening. And he called me and said, speak your piece, say your mind, say your, you know. So I went on a podcast and I told my side. Honestly, this is going to sound very contrived and made up and all this, but a lot of what I'm going to say and a lot of how it transpired does, and it rivals what happened with CM Punk, which is comical because it's straight up the truth. But I did a podcast very similar to somebody else we know, CM Punk, and I said how I felt, and that just rubbed people the wrong way. It's, understandable.
Do you think that, okay, I want you gone while I quit, do you think you would have stood if you would have had that come to Jesus meeting? Hey, let's talk in a couple weeks, days, months.
No, absolutely. If I wasn't so hot-headed and stubborn, and they weren't, and the one guy that said that to me,
not that they're innocent and saying
no, but the guy that said that to me, he was the one that I felt like, and he wound up leaving, I think, a year or two later and just selling his half. He was done, and I think he would even tell you that. We're good now. We squashed it. We actually talk. I would say maybe every other week or so. I speak to him probably 2 or 3 times a month. Just, hey, how you doing? But
yeah.
But yes, look, hindsight's 2020. Things would have been different, but in the grand scheme of things, it was the best thing for me because I was so focused on that place. I missed other opportunities. I missed other bookings. I would not take anything over it.
Right.
And not being there. And don't get me wrong. The first few months, I was like, I went to the school. I trained, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, blah, blah. And not to have that was weird. And then it just, okay. And I say it. I went out on the independents and I made a name for myself doing the deathmatch stuff, whether you like it or not, whether anyone likes it or not. I made a name, not a huge name, but I made a name where
you had traction pre-pandemic.
People saw my name on the card and it still carries around to this day. I made a name and I did that on my own. And that's something I held my head up high on. I still do. And, look, NYWC went on to do what they do, and they're still around. Do I think it's as best as it could have been? No. But, I'm always going to, have that. Well, if you had me, it'd be different. And I could be completely wrong about that.
Right.
But that's the ego, and, like, every wrestler has an ego. So, that's how it happened. And now, 7 years later, here we are.
Now, so then now that because I was just trying to, I don't know if you want this to be like an after mag or like an RF.
No, we do. Let's get it. Listen, man, I've always I'm not gonna,
who everyone knows out to who. Is it Mikey? Is it Shane? How do we get to?
So I had a conversation
because maybe not without you, but you leading to Bull coming back to a lot of people.
Yeah,
that would not have been mentioned.
It's a weird thing. So this is what happened, and again, this is just how it is. I was sitting home. I was watching Survivor Series. I think it was still on a Sunday then. I don't remember, but I was home for some reason. Probably didn't have a show. Whatever. Anyway, I was watching Survivor Series with my stepson.
Okay.
2004, and who walks through the fucking curtain? Or 2003, CM Punk, and I was like
2023, but it's okay. You get
2023. I get hit in the head a lot. I see CM Punk, and I'm like, son of a bitch, look at this. And I see all the photos, and I see, and I'm literally sitting there, and I'm like, man, this guy just walked back into a place that did all this mess. You know what? Screw it. So I put it out there, and I was like, listen, I'm 36. I'm not holding grudges, blah, blah, blah. Like, water under the bridge. If anyone reaches out to, please reach out to so-and-so and let them know I apologize for, whatever in school, right? Literally 4 hours later, I got a text from him saying, hey, man, call me. And we talked, and everything that I thought that I was told that was his fault, that I wasn't brought back and all this stuff, was, look, squashed. I'm not going to bring it up because it's just pointless to.
Right.
But it was squashed. And it all it took was a phone call. Now, it might have been a phone call that needed time to happen because I think if we would have spoken, who knows, earlier. But, Triple H said it, and I've heard it before. If you're the same person you were X amount of years ago, you haven't grown. And
Right.
I would like to think I've grown as a person. For multiple reasons, mainly my wife and my stepson. But other people grow, and I have a completely different mindset. And like I said, I didn't do this to go back. And I even prefaced it in my post when I spoke to him. I didn't say it, like there's at the time, they do the Crusher Dugan Memorial Cup. felt for a very long time and still do. You couldn't even like Crusher was to me. Crusher means more to me than like my own father and mother. Like Crusher was there for me when nobody else was. You know, it was Crusher and Mike Morgan, and they've done things for me that it's personal and you know my personal life, and have been there for me. And I'm never gonna speak a word of it because it's not anyone's business but ours.
Right.
But yeah, so that hurt. That wasn't even a wrestling thing. That was a come on, like you know his name's tattooed on me, and you guys can't even really.
Yeah.
But so you know, like I said, man, here we are. It's crazy, you know, like it really is, even for me.
Now, who comes up with the idea of? Because that's interesting, right? You guys had to come to Jesus. You agree, bygones be bygones, and you're given the creative freedom of, let's make this an angle, or let's just make it a match graphic. Do you think?
Nope. This is what happens. This is exactly how it goes. I get a call from a guy named Mike Norman, who's one of the new owners, who I knew before I left. And Mike's an amazing person, a human being. And he's old school. He came up with Mikey Whipwreck. Mikey went on to be Mikey. Norman never got the opportunity, but it was a great worker.
Right.
He's one of the owners, and he reaches out and said, "Hey, I heard you spoke to so-and-so. You know, the door's open now if you want to come back." And I was like, I don't know. You know, it's been so long, and it's just whatever. And we were talking. So then I was like, you know what? I just want to do the Crusher thing. That's all I cared about. Win, lose, whatever. I didn't care. I just wanted to be in it because I need the closure. You know, I never. Okay. What people don't know is that Crusher was the only guy that walked out when I was gone. He told me he said, "Hey, they want me back," and I said, "Go." He constantly brought me up, constantly said to bring me back, and he wanted that. He wanted me back there, and unfortunately, he passed in 2021. And 2020. I'm sorry. It's just like whatever, you know. But so there was that, and I was like, you know what? I want that because it's for him. It's not for me. It's not for them. It's for him. And then I was told, "Oh, we're gonna have a meeting. We're gonna talk." And literally from December to about March, we never spoke. So
wow, 4 months.
Whatever. I don't care. I literally was like, dude, listen, if we're not gonna talk, then just let's just whatever.
Right. Let's not waste my time.
I'm having a barbecue for my birthday. I invite Norman, and he was like, "Hey, you know, Shane is the other owner, Shane, who is the guy that's been there since pretty much day one. He wants to come." I was like, "All right, no, whatever, no, cool." And Shane walked in, gave me a big hug, like nothing ever happened, and there were things said about him by me, and vice versa.
Sure.
And within the first 10 seconds, I have an idea. And I was like, well, let's fucking enjoy the barbecue first and have a good time. And kept asking and kept talking about. And eventually I was like, all right, let's go inside. And he threw this whole idea about me coming back and no one knowing and this whole thing and causing all this chaos and making people believe it's real and making people believe that this is a legit thing. And I'm not gonna lie, it worked because a lot of people did not know what the hell was going on. And
yeah, it was a lot of people were rather tumultuous when it first launched. Yeah.
Yeah. And it, you know, like I said, man, this is something that's it's crazy because it's started in June and, you know, we're talking almost what, 10 months, something like that. I think 9 months. And now we're here and we're, you know, 2 weeks, basically almost a little over 2 weeks away from the Psycho Circus, which is, you know, their WrestleMania, their big show of the year.
Marquee event the same way that that Ace has Crossroads, ECW, the Super.
Yeah, it's their War Game big death matchy thing.
Now, and ultimately, it's their spin on War Games, death match featurette, if you will. Are you willing to? It's your first time back in 7 years. It's a match that at one point, for the fans and yourself, it was like, all right, how am I going to top the brutality that I created last year? But you're not that guy anymore in the ring. So are you willing to turn back the hand of time and inflict on the other guys in the ring and yourself that form of violence? How far are you willing to go?
I mean, look, I can sit here and tell you I'm not going to do anything because I'm in earshot of my wife, who will probably beat the hell out of me.
Right, which I would enjoy.
Yeah, well, a lot of people would. Look, I mean, where I'm at, who the performer I am now compared to what I was is night and day in all aspects. This match, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a massive chip on my shoulder, because I do. Sure. And people are gonna be like, why? As professional wrestlers, we all have an ego. Every one of us has an ego, and I am determined, and I am going to, because I know me and how driven I am now and how motivated. I'm going to prove the mistake they made, which was letting me go 7 years ago. Like, I know we're breaking the fourth wall and going behind the curtain.
Yeah,
there is a lot of like, straight up honest. I don't like the company. I don't like a lot of the people in the company. I'm never going to be friends with people in the company. I'm going to do me, and that's just who I am. There are people in that locker room that do not like the fact that I'm there, and that is a straight shoot. They're worried about their spot. They're worried about their status. Well, they just don't like me, and whether it's because they heard stuff or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
I'm coming in because I'm good at what I do, and as cliche as this may sound, I am, in my mind, one of the best today that is not signed to a major contract. And I'm good at what I do when it comes to doing this. And as far as the match, that match was created by Mikey Whipwreck. I took that match and I elevated it and evolved it into something even more. And I'm going to remind people of that, because there's a lot of old fans that know who I am, but there's also a lot of new fans that don't know who I am. And I'm going to do what I do. And I'm going to, there's a song by a great country singer named Toby Keith, who's no longer with us. I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. And I got at least one or two left in me. And, and look, there are times I get that itch, and I'm scratching right now legitimately, but no, there's times I get that itch to want to go all out and go crazy. And it's in me. I don't think it'll ever go away. I don't think it's something I need to be smart about, because, when I was doing it, I didn't have responsibilities. It was me. If I got hurt, whatever, but now I have a wife and I have a child to worry about. So, for the sake of what this is for me, and because I am who I am, and I give 110% every time, I don't know. I can't tell you right now what I'm planning on, but I think you wouldn't be shocked if you didn't see a lot of that old school stockade and a lot of old school of what I did in that match. And I'm planning on bringing that. And if this is the last time I ever step foot in an NYWC ring, because I don't know what happens next. I don't know if I want to be there. I don't know if they want me there. I don't know. Look, man.
So you're confirming for the fact to us the fact that this is an angle, this is the end game, and this may in fact be
100%. Look, when I showed up,
not just redemption, but a swan song in one shot.
It could be. I don't know, and I know a lot of people may watch this and go, "Oh, I really don't know," because there's a lot of factors, man. Look, at the end of the day, there's a lot of ghosts that have not been put to rest there, and I don't know if they'll ever be put to rest, or should they. But this match is not about. I mean, it's about me in the sense that yes, I'm going to be there. But for me, it's about doing this for Crusher Dugan, John Mayer. That's my motivation, my reasoning. The only reason. There's a lot of good young talent there that I would love to work with. But at the end of the day, I have to be okay with being there. And right. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's still, I don't think will ever be answered. Like, I'll be honest, things are good. But it's a one day at a time thing for me.
How much of that is is that paranoia of, oh, at any minute this could go to shit? How much of that is, oh, it's wrestling, you know, we're not talking about the future, we're only talking about this?
It's dealing
How
with them.
much of your mindset is divided, or do you
Just
think you're
knowing how things
overthinking this a
are.
bit?
So the benefit I have now, and this may sound really very douchebaggy and dickish, but I dealt with this before. I went down. It's like going back to. It's almost as if you're going back to an ex-girlfriend that cheated on you or whatever.
Right.
You know, it's hard to trust again, right?
Yeah.
The benefit I have this time, and I don't mean this in any way. And look, it's an independent wrestling company. I'm not saying I'm changing the world or making millions, so I'm not dumb. I don't need to be there. I can not be there and still work a very busy schedule and still do what I love.
Right.
And I did it for 7 years. And I don't need them. In my opinion, they need me. And I've kind of been told that without being told that.
Okay.
Because you look at their roster, they have a lot of talented, new, up-and-coming kids, but they don't have the realism. They don't have, you know, you got your Papa Don, you got, you know, I mean, that's really it, honestly. You know, you got Michael Mastretta, but Michael Mastretta, as talented as he is, still very young in the business. You know, he's not even reached his
excellent, but he's young.
He's a phenomenal worker, and he's going to be a phenomenal worker until he decides to stop doing this. And I hope he reaches his ultimate goals of whatever it is.
I agree.
But there's just a lack of. I've always been told by a lot of people, you know, I'm believable. I can make people believe what I do, and I think that's what's missing. You know, there's a lot and there's also that leadership and that veteranness. Like I said, you got a guy like Papa Don. Papa Don is a phenomenal worker. Never got his due. Should have gotten his due, but he's one guy. And you know, I think me being there, I think Bull being there, it's adding that, like, you know, it's like, oh, this is a cheese pizza, but if you put pepperoni and meatballs and this on it, it's even better. I think that's kind of what it is. And I also think those kids need it because you're only as good as your last opponent, and you only get better by working with someone better than you. If you are the best in one place and you're not going elsewhere, you're not going to get better. You may raise people up to your level, but there's always someone better. There's people that are better than me. There are people that are better than them. And, you know, unless you're Shawn Michaels or, I don't know at this point, Roman Reigns or stuff like those, the top of the top.
Sure.
There are not many. There, you need to work with guys to make you better. And that's what, in a perfect world, Cheyenne, I would love to sit here and tell you, I would love to be there. I'd love to go down to the school and help those kids. I just don't know at this point.
Well, I think that for me absolutely puts a button on it, if you will. I want to go to the rapid fire section of our program, but before I do that, I have to, of course, bring up the fact that we are talking with Kaide Lothbrok about February 22nd. It is the Psycho Circus. It is the 22nd Psycho Circus at NYWC, the NYWC Sportatorium, of course, out there in
well, this one's in Farmingville.
In Farmingville, I've got the flyer here,
which is right next to Midland.
Farmingville, and this is at 780 Horse Block, Farmingville, New York.
Yeah.
Of course, they've got NYWCProWrestling.com. The Sportatorium is morphing into Farmingville, if you will. I'm going to try to modify the rapid fire portion of this. So, who is the first person you're going to put your paws on at the Psycho Circus?
I mean, if ever, so, you know, it's a War Games S match, so depending on my thing.
Pending your entry.
Pending my entry, honestly, if I had it my way, it'd be Dickie Rod's. There's a long, both in and out of the ring issue there that I think will be squared up come the Psycho Circus.
What is the one piece of brutality that you could tell us will happen at your hands?
I mean, I would love to tell you, but I mean, obviously, we're at the great beckoning of the New York State Athletic Commission. But if you're asking me what is my my hopes, I think it's gonna have to be my good old friends, the Cinder Blocks, once again.
Okay. will you have Crusher's name on your wrist tape?
So I don't wear wrist tape, but they're out there on social media. I had a bunch of shirts made that say Dugan's Dungeon.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, which was a name that he wanted to open a gym with and a wrestling school at one point. So I will be wearing that. I mean, Crusher's name is tattooed on me, so everywhere I go, 24/7, he's there. So
And last but not least, and maybe even the most important, quick checker sheets.
You know the answer to that. Now you're just trying to listen. As good as look, Quick Check, a big fan because they have my drink of choice, which is my Arizona Arnold Palmer Diet or Zero.
Right.
But Sheets, food wise, Sheets has a better variety.
That's right.
I have to give it the Sheets.
That's going to be. You're the first person I've asked that. I got to have Gibkey on so I can make sure that the Sheets moniker keeps getting put out there. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Renaissance wrestler himself, Kaide Lothbrok. We're talking the Psycho Circus and all the things to come for the 2025 year of Kaide Lothbrok. I'm one of few people that know what this match, that moment means to you, and I hope that it is fulfilling. I hope that it is what you need for closure. I hope you can maybe not shut the door on NYWC, but shut the door on the wounds that need to be closed. And
I hope so, man. I think that's what a lot of us are all hoping for, and move forward.
It's becoming more of the common term here on the program, but I'm always rooting for you. I'm hoping for you. If I could get the footage of that, I will see it. And looking forward to the outcome, win, lose, or draw for that.
You got him. I appreciate it, man. Always.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for giving me this exclusive. Kaide Lothbrok, get him on the social media. Of course, Cheyenne Ortiz here, linktree.com/Cheyenne the Voice. The following conversation has been scheduled for one fall. We'll see you next time, fans.